All right, here we go. So can you see the PowerPoint now?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, great. All right, so let me explain a little about what I'm doing here. If you don't know already, I'm going to be starting a series of kind of a how-to, and it'll be the whole process of planning a wedding. So obviously we're starting right at the beginning. So this is just kind of a first steps. What do we do first right after we get engaged? And then I'm going to try and do maybe weekly, hopefully, weekly or bi-weekly, another seminar just leading to the next step. So the next one will probably be finding your reception venue. So things like that. And then, so forth. So today we're just talking about what you do first as soon as you get engaged. You're excited, you may be a little overwhelmed, just not sure which direction to go in. So I'm going to give you those first few steps from there. Let's see. Okay. Just a quick background about me and my company. If you don't know too much about me or you're not familiar with me, my name's Carissa Lockery. I own Pink Olive Events in Cheshire. And I rebranded last year, so it was under a different name for about 10 years before I rebranded. So I've been doing this for about 12 years. So a long time, lots of weddings, lots of events. Caitlin and Liz, who you'll see also on the photo there, they are my other coordinators. So they have run weddings for me, by themselves with assistants, but they're my other head coordinators in the company. They work with me, on an as needed basis. They're definitely not full timers, but Caitlin has been with me for about 10 years. She started out as an intern in 2009. And Liz joined me about 2 years ago. So they're really great. If I'm ever booked for an event or a wedding, they're ready to jump in with you. So so that's just a little background about us. And all right, we'll get right into it. So congratulations, you just got engaged. You might be thinking now, what the heck do I do? Great question. These are the first 5 things that I always tell people that they really need to get a handle on before they jump in and really start looking at venues. I know you're, probably excited and you have all these ideas running through your head, but there's some things that you should think through first before you really jump into it. Number one being, well, I'll get into more detail of each one, but those are just the 5 things there, but we'll talk about each one in more detail. All right, so the first one, start thinking about a date, time of year, month, season. There's lots of different things that can go into that. You might be a teacher, you might have to do a summer wedding. Fall has been very popular here. You might have a fall wedding in mind, or maybe Christmas. You have a snowy Christmas theme wedding in your head. Those are all things that you might consider. You might have a significant date to the two of you. You might have an anniversary where you started dating. You might want to get married on your grandparents' wedding anniversary. So start thinking about those things. What's going to be really important to you? Are you looking for a short engagement? Do you want to I'm talking to people now who are looking at 2021 dates. So do you want a longer engagement? Those are all things that you should kind of be thinking about in the back of your head, when it comes to deciding what time of year you want to get married. Some other things to consider when you're thinking about that, peak season is now between, April, May, and October. So those dates are going to book up the quickest, especially on a Saturday night. Saturday nights are really going to book up fast. And sometimes you're going to pay more. You're going to pay more for those peak dates. If you're looking at a venue that's more of a banquet hall and they have food and catering and everything on site, they may say that there's a minimum of 150 guests on a Saturday night. So if you're looking more at, 100 guests, which we'll get into in a minute, I wouldn't even look at a Saturday night at that venue because they're going to tell you that there's a minimum. You have to pay for 150 guests because it's our peak time. Just something to consider. Thursdays, Sundays, those have become more popular just because they're a little bit cheaper for you. This year I did a Tuesday wedding. I don't know if you were following along on my Instagram or my stories or anything, but we did a Tuesday afternoon wedding. It was what the couple wanted. They were paying for the wedding themselves. They that's just what they wanted, and that's what we did. So nothing is out of the question these days. Used to be spring and summer were the most popular, but now fall has become, September, October has been, for the last few years, has been my busiest months by far. So again, just those peak dates are going to be booking up quickly. So think about that. Any questions on that? Good. Okay. Budget. That's a big one. If you are planning a wedding for the first time and you just don't know what things cost, and you shouldn't, because, if this is your first time around, you're not going to know what things cost. Most of the time, they're not cheap. So having an idea of some kind of number in your head is a good plan to start with. Do you know who's going to be contributing? Are you paying for it yourselves? Do you have parents who are helping you out, or anybody else? Do you have a number in your head that you're like, I really don't want to go over, 20,000, 30,000, whatever that number is. This is the number I want to stick with. How do I do that? And do you need to have a 2-year engagement because you need that time to start saving up, or do you already have a savings? Have you been together a long time? You knew it was coming. It was just a matter of when you were going to get engaged, and you have already started kind of planning, putting aside some money. But budget is a huge thing that you definitely should talk to each other, talk to your parents if they're contributing, find out what you have to spend here. I always suggest, that both of you should just make a list of your top 3 priorities and your must-haves. If it's really good food, a great photographer, and just a big party with a great DJ, those are the things that you're going to put your money in, the bulk of your money in. Those are the things you really care about. And I should add too, about 50% of your budget is probably going to go towards the reception and the food. That's not listed on here, but I just throw that in there just as something to think about, because that's the venue and the food. Those are the 2 biggest things that you're going to spend your money on. When you're looking around with vendors or anything, don't just go with the lowest price. So read your contracts, go through everything really carefully, see what you're getting for your money, because things are going to vary. So don't just read the bottom line and say, okay, great, we'll go with them. They're within our budget. What are you getting? Really take a look at what they list in there for you. And do your research. Just what's the going rate for a photographer in your area? I know so many that it varies, but at least kind of get that average. Same with especially wedding planners. We offer such a wide range of service. I do, full planning, and then I do a day of coordination. Obviously, the price range is much different, but I think I'm within the going rate of the area. So just do your research, just see what's feasible. If it's really low, it's probably too good to be true. So just do your research, read your reviews, see what's the going rate, and see what works for you. Don't forget about things that may not seem so obvious: gratuities, postage for invitations, your hair and makeup trials. Those aren't free. If you plan to get bridal party gifts for anybody, all that stuff adds up. It may not be, on your list of big things to get, but you do need to get some of that, and it'll be more cost to you. So just make sure you put a small percentage of the budget aside, usually about 3% for those types of things, just to have a little nest egg for that. And one thing I tell people too, don't put all your eggs or dollars in one basket, because I've had so many people who spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on just their venue, and that doesn't include anything. That just includes the space. It doesn't include food, alcohol, staff, rentals, nothing like that. And they spend such a huge chunk on that one thing, and then they have nothing left over for the rest, or they're trying to really budget for the rest of those things. If you have a $10,000 budget, you can't spend half of it on just the venue. So, really try and do that breakdown. If you see a venue that you like that is in that range, really try and figure out what the rest of the wedding is going to cost you before you put that deposit down. And, I'm sure everybody's heard the phrase, you get what you pay for. Again, just because it's cheap doesn't mean it's going to be the best option for you. You know, experience, quality, all of that is going to come into play with the price. I may be a little bit more than somebody else, but I think my experience, my reviews, my customer service, my relationships that I build with my clients, I think that kind of justifies, you know, my pricing, as opposed to maybe somebody who just started out. Not to say that they're not good, but it's all relative. So let's see. Okay, so guest list. So, you know, you don't have to have an exact guest list when you're starting, but you should have some kind of idea about how many people that you're looking for. And I would definitely say to do this before you start even researching venues. Do you know you want a small, intimate wedding? Do you know you want a huge party? Do you have big families and you know you're going to have a large party because you just can't exclude some of those family members? Are your parents inviting friends? And that kind of goes back to number two with, you know, who's contributing. If your parents are giving you money for the wedding, they may say, well, I need to invite these few people from work or these few friends. They need to be coming. You know, I'm giving you money, so I want to pay for my friends to come. And are you inviting coworkers? There's a rule for that I kind of say it's either all or nothing. If you invite one, you know, you start talking about it at work, kind of have to invite, you know, more than just the one. Sometimes if it's just your boss, you can get away with just inviting your boss. But coworkers, I feel like it's kind of an all or nothing deal. I guess that's just my personal opinion. And then, you know, are most of your guests couples? Do you know everybody's coming with another person? Are they engaged to somebody? Are they married to somebody? So that right there may almost double your guest count. So some other things to consider with that. Well, I kind of just touched on that. If your parents are contributing and giving you money, they might want to invite some friends. So that's going to increase your guest count. Same thing, all or nothing policy. And I kind of say that when it comes to kids too. Kids, coworkers, plus one. Typically the rule of thumb for plus ones is that if they're, you know, they've been together for a while, or they're living together or engaged, those are the people who should get plus ones. If they are just, you know, casually dating somebody, or they just started dating somebody, or you just don't want them to be left out and you want them to bring somebody, typically if you're trying to cut people off the list, that's usually the first place to start. And just keep in mind, more guests equals more money. You know, you're gonna have to pay for more meals, for more open bar, maybe a bigger venue or a bigger room at a venue. So just really narrow down that guest list before you start diving in and searching for a venue. And there's so many different styles in Connecticut. You can get a farm, you can get a brewery, you can get a hotel, you can get a ballroom. I mean, Connecticut's great like that. There's so much versatility with different styles and where you can get married. But kind of think about yourselves as a couple. You know, are you casual? Do you want to just hang out in your backyard and have, you know, a big tented wedding? Do you want, have you always dreamed of a formal black tie, you know, elegant wedding? Do you want indoors or outdoors? Again, beach farms, hotels, breweries, those are all great places in Connecticut that you can find to get married. I mean, the list is literally endless. And there's more and more popping up, you know, all over the place. So there's definitely no shortage of venues in Connecticut. Just keep in mind, you know, weather. The weather is so unpredictable in New England. It could snow in October. Who knows? I've had storms, you know, over the last couple summers. We've had some really stormy weather for summer outdoor weddings. And those are all things you have to think through. You know, what are you going to do in case of weather? What are you going to do in case of rain? You know, just the logistics of everything. Are you getting married on site? You know, is the ceremony location, if you're not getting married on site, is that space close enough to the reception where everybody can get there without having to drive too far? You know, what's the timing of the ceremony and the wedding? How close is it to hotels? If you have out-of-state guests coming, is there a hotel block or a hotel you can block off rooms in nearby? You know, all those things to kind of consider. Casual, simple, nothing crazy. I hear those all the time. Those words mean nothing to me as a wedding planner, honestly. Doesn't necessarily mean it's cheaper. You know, the wedding is what you want to make of it. So those words aren't really too descriptive when you're trying to explain what you want in a venue or in your wedding. So try and be a little more descriptive, because my simple might not be your simple. Just try and be a little more specific when you're describing to people what you're looking for your wedding. And then finally, you can start doing some research for your venues. You know, there's great information on websites. You can go probably find anything that you need on different vendors, Instagrams, on their Facebooks, but, you know, go to their webpage, find out, you know, how you can contact the person there, schedule tours, you know, when you're ready, but definitely kind of think about what you want first. All of those things I just mentioned kind of lead up to this. You know, do you want your ceremony and your reception to be at the same place, or have you always dreamed of getting married in the church that you grew up in? Do you have a caterer that you want to use, or do you prefer to have the caterer on site? It's less that you need to kind of coordinate as far as rentals and linens and creating a menu. You do get probably a little bit less of a custom menu that way, but it is a little bit easier in terms of logistics and coordinating, you know, staff and all that kind of stuff. You know, what's the room capacity? If you're looking at inviting 100 guests and the room is built for 250, they're going to look lost in there. It's going to look way too small, or way too big with very few people. And then, you know, vice versa. You can't pack 150 people into a room for 50. And then, is there another event going on at the same time when you're looking at these places? Is it just yours for the whole day, or do you need to be rushed in and out because there's a daytime and then an evening wedding? You know, is your timing okay for that, or do you really prefer to be the only wedding happening that day? And then just some things to consider. We're going to definitely get more into this in the next webinar, but just a few things to start thinking about. You know, are your vendors going to have enough time to get in? Is there somebody that's going to be there to let them in? Is there a wedding that's happening earlier and then we can't really get in until an hour before the reception time? That's kind of tight. Is there a backup plan in case of rain for the ceremony or the reception? Are you having your reception outside? Are you having your ceremony outside? If you are and it rains, is there a place that you can go and be covered and your guests aren't getting poured on? Do you need to be cleaned up and out by a certain time? Do you have an hour or so to clean up? Are you going to be able to do that? Do you have somebody to do that? Do they do that for you? Or, you know, do you have to have somebody do it? You don't want to do it. Call us, we'll do it. And do they have staff on site that'll clean up for you? Are you planning on getting ready on site? If so, is there a place to do that? Is there a bridal suite? All these things that you might not be thinking about now, but they do matter, and they will be, you know, going through your mind later on. Oh, and then parking. That's a big one too. Is there enough parking? All right. So I think that's it for this first one. It was pretty brief. We're going to get into some more details with the other ones coming up, but do anybody have any questions about these first steps?
So how do you determine like what a reasonable starting budget is if it's really difficult to find like people's pricing? So one of the things that I noticed when I started was people, like, you post your pricing very like transparently and open, but a lot of venues I've noticed don't. So how do you even say like, yes, this is a reasonable budget for the area?
Are you talking just specific to venues, or are you talking just in general?
I guess in general, because I've also noticed that, you know, caterers don't post. A lot of them haven't been posting like even sample pricing. Like I'll see sample menus, but not sample pricing. Or,
right.
You know, the venue will say, hey, contact us. Like, I like yours because here's what you get for the cost.
Right.
But most people don't do that.
I think we took the pricing down this weekend, but we're going to be changing some of that around. But it really depends on the type of you know, vendor that you're looking for. You mentioned a caterer. If they're an offsite caterer, they may not have set pricing. Like I know when I work with a certain caterer, he doesn't have a set pricing because it really depends on, number one, the menu, and then your rentals will be determined based on your menu. Staff is based on your menu. So it's really hard. He doesn't have a package price, you know what I mean? So it's really hard to find that out without having a more detailed conversation with them. But like you said, mine was up there for a while. It was pretty transparent. This is what you get. This is the price. If you're comparing with somebody else, you know, just see if they're including the same things that I'm including. Do you get an unlimited day? Do you get, you know, all the meetings prior to? Or are they just literally showing up that day and setting up for you? So just do the comparing, and you have to prioritize what's important to you. Like if you want to spend $5,000 on a photographer because you know that's something that's really important to both you and your fiance, you know, I would say that's probably on the higher end, but not unheard of, not the highest that I've worked with. So you have to prioritize it. And like I said, just kind of do your research and see what's, you know, what's important to you. Does that help?
I guess I just don't like cold emailing people when I don't have
Yeah.
anything set. And so it makes sense. And the comparison is definitely good. It's just,
And that's good to know. We don't like those people who cold email us and then we get ghosted when we send our pricing. So
yeah,
I speak for many vendors when I say that. So yeah, just having an idea of what you're looking for and what your priorities are going into it. I think that'll help a little bit.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and definitely check the reviews, check, you know, what other clients have said about that vendor, and the experience and things like that, and that should lead you in the right direction. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm going to post this, and then I will keep everybody updated as far as when the next one will be, and that will be with starting to find your venue and how to choose the right venue for you. All right. Thank
Thank you.
you.